Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life. Each episode, we dive into the journeys, mindsets, and experiences of industry trailblazers, game changers, and out-of-the-box thinkers. Ned Lavelle, co-founder of Pinthouse Pizza, is our guest this episode. Ned is a powerhouse entrepreneur with a fascinating journey that spans the military, tech, and Austin's thriving craft beer scene. We'll be covering Ned's path from early dreams of architecture to Army officer and his pursuit of creativity through entrepreneurship. Plus, he'll share his insights on mentorship and building a brand that's become a local favorite. Special thanks to our Gen Z contributors interviewed by Anais Schmidt and myself, including Gabriel, who talks about his anxiety in building a company while managing his social battery. Sebastian, who talks about the power of social media and even shared that his 4-year-old niece watches TikTok. And Santino, who expresses what a massive shift his brain is experiencing in the transition from high school to college. Let's get started.
Happy Friday, y'all.
TGIF!
It's like, is it Friday or is it Monday?
See, I'm always upset that it's Friday because then I have to go home for the weekend and I can't do more with founding up.
Actually, that's where you
So
do the
true.
most of your work.
That is honestly, yeah, that is where I do most of work over the weekend.
It's like I find stuff coming out on Saturday night and Sunday night, and we're like, oh, Leon's hard at it. He must have some non-bothered time.
There's no interruptions.
Yes.
Well, there's less interruptions. Always my son, of course, but yeah, I don't know. It is a chunk of time to go. Anyway, not to derail.
We're not derailing. We're an episode. We're an episode.
Oh, life's an episode.
All righty. Well, welcome to episode 9. Founding up Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life with a very special guest, we always say very special guest, but
He's special to me because I love electric jellyfish. It's like my favorite
I thought you
beer.
were saying
I
you love
love
pizza.
Pinthouse.
I mean, I like
so
pizza.
much.
The pizza's good. Don't get me wrong. The pizza is good, but the electric jellyfish is, and I mean this literally, award-winning.
I don't know if it's won many awards.
I'm giving it the Leon Vanstone Best Beer of the Year award.
That's all you
That
need.
sounds like a good award.
When you have that, do you need anything else?
Yeah, do you need anything else?
It's
Doctor's orders.
it is a very good beer. I think it's almost a gateway drug into other things that we do that are also very good. But it is a good entry into craft beer. It's easy to drink. It's balanced in bitterness and sweetness. It's unique in the hazy and the hop profile. It's got a great aroma and nose. It's a good beer.
Love it. Well, without further ado, let's get started with some intros.
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie Payton. I'm an actor, comedian, podcast personality, co-host of Uncharted, and happy to be here.
And many, many
And many more.
Let me see how many hats I've got. down
Snorri
here.
Godmother.
Also, your other podcast.
Yeah.
That just released.
Snorri's.
Stories.
Children's bedtime
I
podcast.
love the whole thought process behind that.
Thank you.
Just because who needs bedtime stories more than...
And if you listen to the
And
end, ladies
routine.
and gentlemen, Natalie will be giving you a plug. So
Full body meditation. I'll take you through.
And hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, entrepreneur, co-host, co-founder,
How many more of the
amongst
hats?
other things. I don't even want to start. Among many other things.
And I'm Dan Dillard, co-host of Uncharted, co-founder of Founding Up and finance background and many other things as well. And today we've got this special giant of a guest. Because he walks in and was like, whoa.
It's probably the biggest guest you've ever had.
Yeah, what
Actually,
about Donald? He was
Donald's
tall.
pretty tall.
I think he
you are
trumped
taller than
Donald.
Donald.
Did you see what I did there?
I did.
What did you say?
I think he
Donald.
trumped
Thought
Donald.
we weren't talking about politics.
No,
I actually
no.
went there, not me.
Off the table. Off the table.
So Ned Lavelle, former basketball player, Army officer, and current entrepreneur.
Nice.
Yeah, one of the co-founders of Pinthouse Pizza here in Austin, Texas.
And jellyfish.
Inventor, personally
Jellyfish
invented.
enabler. Yeah.
Well, and pizza dough aficionado.
I do know more about pizza than I know about beer. Was the chef for a while. Somebody had to do it.
It is the best pizza in Austin. To whomever is listening, it is the best pizza in Austin. And the Italian chopped, I just had it last night, actually.
Nice.
It's a good one.
It's great.
Well, as you may know, Ned, we are here to discuss mentorship. And typically how we start is we like to go into our guest mentors' kind of background and where you got started. So we'll take you back to like high school or 15, 16, or some people have gone all the way back to 6 years old. So you can go back as far as you want and just kind of think about what did you want to be when you were that age?
Sure.
And let's talk about that journey.
I mean, when I was younger, I forget the name of these books, but they're these books that would show like cross sections of castles.
Oh, I love those cross-section books.
Yes. And so I loved those books, learning about bulwarks and moats and everything else, and thought that maybe I'd be an architect.
Man, a lot of people have said architect.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I
the third,
said-
I think
yeah,
it
you
seems,
said architect.
you know, I like Legos. It seemed cool. You're
I
building
love
stuff,
Legos.
but you have to be pretty detail oriented. And I
But-
think
but-
at times I'm too
Seriously,
big
though,
picture.
like that's a lot of you're the third entrepreneur that's told us they wanted to be an architect as a kid, and I
Yeah.
am becoming increasingly convinced that it's about building something.
yeah.
Mhm.
Creativity.
That it's like okay, and as a child, you don't understand necessarily where that's going, so you're like, I want to build something, and as an adult, you're like, oh, I'm going to build an organization.
You don't get entrepreneurship at 6 years old, but you do
I
get
didn't.
but you do get Legos and you do get building
Tangible
stuff.
building.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, but that's just
Yeah.
like the fascinating little pieces that.
He actually
one of my-
does mean to derail. He does that.
One of my partners, our head of operations, Kyle Dietrich, was an architect. So
Huh,
maybe there's something there.
it might be.
So later on, I think everybody has mentors throughout their life, but I remember one moment I was showing up for 2-a-days or 3-a-days in the middle of August in Dallas for football as a freshman. And the basketball coach saw me and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm here for football." I didn't like football, but I had to play a sport. My parents made me. So we were there and he's like, "You're done with football. Let's go. You're playing basketball." And then he kind of just really brought me along and invested in me. And if Coach Mike Ray hadn't done that, I wouldn't have played in college. I wouldn't have done anything. I'd be that
So
6'9"
that was
guy
your
that
first-
people were like, "Do you play basketball?" I'd have to be like, "No." But
As I say, you wouldn't have been 6'9". I'd have been 6'5" at best. Like,
oh no, I was always big. I was always tall. But I was always much more interested in comic books and science fiction and that, brainy stuff
Yeah.
than athletics, but kind of leaned in and got several D1 offers and ended up picking West Point, best
Cool.
academic school that recruited me. 5 years in the Army, lucked into, no one picked Hawaii before I picked Hawaii. So I got to live in Hawaii for 3 years.
nice.
Came back to Fort Hood, which is now Fort Cavazos in Killeen, and 6 months of that in Kuwait. Got out of the service June 1st, 2001, right before 9/11, and didn't like any of the jobs I was getting offered. You typically Army officer, it's like, "Hey, go be an operations guy. Why don't you go to Midland and run this Bell helicopter factory?" Like, no, I don't want to do that. So kind of delayed. A buddy of mine was at UT at the LBJ school for communication. And so I thought, well, I'll go get an MBA. So got an MBA, I was a computer science undergrad. So thought I was going to focus go be a CTO. But this is 2001 to 2003 when IT is a cost center, not a revenue
Right.
driver. Right. And so came to the realization I'd be fighting for budget to upgrade your laptop and decided I didn't want to do that and got into entrepreneurship. Met a buddy there, Tyler Norwood, who's my current president of Pinthouse and buddy of mine. I've spent more time with him than I've spent with my brother at this point. And we started doing stuff. And we had a bunch of big ideas, none of which panned out. He ran out of cash, I ran out of cash, and we took real jobs. So I went to Dell. So in 2005, before, if you bought a plasma from Dell and you wanted it wall mounted, my team managed that. So we coordinated providers all throughout the US to kind of get the delivery and the service and all that stuff to line up. So that lasted about 9 months, and it was good. It was good. I did well. I got well rated, but Tyler emailed me at one point, and he's like, "Hey man, I don't like Qualcomm. I'm going to quit. Let's go do something." I'm like, "Okay, sure, yeah, done." And so, kind of dialed it back from the next Facebook to what could we start that would that was at a good stage of growth, that had a defensible strategy. And for us, that was Jimmy John's. And so we started opening Jimmy John's here in town. When we signed the deal for our first one, there was 3 in town. There was 600 stores in the US. We grew that to 6 stores here in town, of our own in addition. But those 3 stores sold to a bigger group that put in an area development agreement that kind of locked us out of growing. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of filled in where we could fill in. And then the growth options became go to Killeen and put a store in. Okay. I had lived in Killeen. I did not want to drive an hour and a half to, no offense to Killeen.
Right.
But I didn't want to drive an hour and a half to Killeen to go audit, are they using the mayo scoop and cutting the bread the right way, right?
Right.
Or go to Waco or go to San Antonio. And so for us, those options weren't exciting. And one of our other Pinthouse founders said, "Hey, you guys need to come look at this place in California." And it was pizza and beer, communal service, shared tables and community tables. So we're like, okay. Craft beer was growing. At the time, there was 16 craft breweries in Austin. We'll be 12 next month. So 12 years ago, not a lot of breweries. Opened our first store in a neighborhood that was turning over and growing. There was not a lot of options. And so if you didn't want to go to Chili's at Lamar and 45th, rumored to be the best Chili's in the world.
On Reddit, yes.
It's a meme. But then you had an option. You could come to Pinthouse. And we're making beer. And luckily, we opened at a time where people gave us the grace and we had the runway for me to figure out how to make dough the right way and for us to scale up production. We open with the capacity to do 600 barrels of beer, which is 1,200 kegs in a year. And we were popular. And so we just kept selling out. And so you'd come in early on and we'd have 2 beers on the wall that were ours, right? And so we sold those tanks, put in new tanks, and quickly realized that we just had to keep scaling. And so to scale the beer side, we have to open more locations. There's a law in Texas that, and tell me when we're going too deep here. But
no, this is fascinating. We're here for it.
Yeah. So TABC, through a lot of influence from distributors, set the limit for how much beer a brewpub can make to 10,000 barrels.
Right.
And so in Texas, you can participate in one of the 3 tiers. You can make the beer, you can distribute the beer, or you can retail the beer, right? So brewpubs are special in that we do all 3. We very limited distribution for us. Most of our distribution is done by the Bud House in town, which is Brown Distributing. But we get to participate in all 3, and so there's different limitations on us, one of which is you can make 10,000 barrels. That's still...
So you had to open new pizza restaurants just because you wanted to scale the beer side of the business, basically. Is what
I think a lot of people know our beer, and our beer is world-class. But the driver for our business is food. Mm-hmm. And so beer makes money for us, is a showcase. It's a billboard. It's a driver for the more craft enthusiasts to come in for special beer releases. But really what it does is kind of create a branding halo. So our beer is in Moody. Our beer is at ACL. And what's kind of funny to me is when you go to Moody to get one of our beer, to get a beer, it's electric jellyfish, premium, domestic. And so we've got our own tier,
Uh-huh.
right? And so then our brand becomes associated like, oh man, one, you might complain it's expensive for the internet. We do not set the pricing on any of these. It's the same price whether we sell it to HEB or
I
we
think
sell
you'd
it to...
be very happy with. I went to the Austin FC.
Yep.
Game
Yeah, they started it.
And that one tall boy of electric jellyfish was $22.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, it was worth it. I bought that thing anyway. I swallowed my pride.
They know
just like I
there.
swallowed that beer.
Oh, well, they're trying to find that price elasticity where the guest will say no. And I guess they haven't found it yet. It's funny because they were the first guys.
Thanks, Leon.
Yeah.
They were the first group that like put a crazy number for what jellyfish cost. And to the point where there's guys in the stands holding up signs like, why is jellyfish $16? Right? And a couple of our brewers are...
Great question.
A couple of our brewers are big FC fans. And so they got jerseys. I think the price of the beer at the time was 18. So their jerseys both say number 18 and it's electric and the other guy's jellyfish.
So cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Fascinating story. Love it. I heard a couple of opportunities, but the earliest mentorship outside the home, if you consider parents mentors, was coach.
Yeah.
It sounds like
I had that too.
And that's interesting because that hasn't come up before in our episodes that I can think about or I can remember. But coaches do that. I mean, essentially they like pull you out of one world and put you in another and say, here's where you're going to excel. So that's pretty
like
fascinating.
literally, right? Literally comes up to you. What are you doing? Football? No, you're not. You're basketball now.
Well, as he said, you can't teach big. I'm 6'9", so that's
you can't teach
part
big. That's so good.
But going back to mentoring, I'm always looking for mentorship, and I'm a big proponent that whatever I'm trying to figure out, someone's already figured it out. They've already gone through this and figured it out. And so a good example of that is when we were going to put queso into Pinthouse for chips and queso, I had met Roberto and the guys at Taco Deli, Roberto Espinoza. And so I could reach out to him and say, hey, I'm looking to do queso. What do he's already learned all these lessons. He has great queso, does a great job. He's like, sure, here you go. When we were opening Pinthouse, I had a lot of issues with our dough. Our dough would blow out, which basically means it over fermented, and I couldn't figure it out. And we eventually would have figured it out, but I didn't figure it out right then. And so my daughter was in preschool with the Home Slice owner's daughter, and I saw them at a fundraiser, and I said, hey, my name's Ned, blah, blah, blah. I'm opening a pizzeria and a brew pub. And they were so gracious. They said, hey, we're going to send Phil. Let us know when Phil can come over. Phil is like their head kitchen guy, dough guy. Phil spent a day with us and unscrewed our dough. Keep it PG-13 here. But, fixed our dough for us.
Tweaked the dough recipe.
Yeah. And he was just like, great. And he's like, crapping rainbows the whole time. Oh, this is so good. This is so great. But what if we use 1/10 of the yeast? Okay. And, it's not a huge revelation. You can find that recipe a lot. It was just something I was, having a hard time at. But they sent this.
Right. They took the time.
For free.
To their
sent this guy.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Collaborative. Right. And then now they'll do fundraisers and we'll send them beer.
Right.
So if they called me, I'm gonna give them anything.
Right.
Pretty much. Whatever they need.
Within reason, right. Yeah.
Right. Or I'll see, hey, your pricing on this site looks to be wrong. You might want to check it, or hey, what are you guys doing for online ordering? So we can kind of, rising tide, raise all ships here. So, I'm always looking for mentors. There's chefs that I reach out to and try and learn something from and borrow an idea from and then adapt it to what we're doing. Yeah. So always looking for.
What was it about? I love that you just say that even now I'm still always looking for mentors. Was there a specific moment in your life when you said people will help and I'm going to use this as a tool, mentorship?
I don't think it was a point. It was honestly,
The reason I ask that is because most people are afraid of like bothering other people, and
Sure.
there's this like
Like, who
fear.
would go to their competition and ask them for help? Most people wouldn't do that, in fairness. I think.
well,
It's like
yeah.
asking you're on the basketball court, you go to the other team. Hey guys, can you
Give me some pointers.
can you give me some pointers? Got any tips for this one? Like,
So you might not be able to ask them before the game, but I bet if you talk to them after the game, they would do that, right?
well, but that's like saying, well, when my business had gone, if Pinthouse had gone out of business, then Home Slice would have helped you with the pizza.
Oh,
deals.
well, yeah. We were not a threat to Home Slice, and Home Slice is still the big dog in town in terms of volume and quality. They do a great job making a New York style slice.
They
So,
do. They are
yeah.
excellent pizza. That's true.
Was there a point where I was like, you know what?
Well, something gave you the permission to yourself to say, I'm okay asking others,
Mhm.
and I'm just kind of trying to figure that out, because a lot of people that we've asked when we go out and talk to Gen Z, it's not an option for them, or it doesn't come natural.
Yeah, they're intimidated by it, or they don't think they're allowed to.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to tell you no,
Right.
So at some point, it just happened naturally. I guess it was.
Yeah, I naturally try and build equity with all my relationships, especially, if I think maybe someday I'm going to have to ask something of them.
Mhm.
And it's not that transactional, but, it's like, might as well be good to everybody, because you never know when I'm going to have to give them a call.
Right.
And I'm always willing to, try and meet up, ask for ideas. And, at some point it's probably reciprocal. They're calling me and they're like, hey man, I'm having trouble getting jellyfish into my restaurant. Can you talk to the broker? Like, of course, and then so we'll, nudge their rep to hopefully get them some product,
Yeah.
right?
So the first one I heard was the coach, and then the second one, it was almost like a peer mentor, which is your best friend.
Tyler, yeah, you're good
Yeah.
friend.
Would you consider that your like a peer mentor? Because he's the one that said, hey, leave your job, let's go do this thing.
Yeah. Tyler is, he's driven and super sharp guy, Stanford undergrad, did great at UT, is aspirational, and I think we balance each other out a lot with, some of our different qualities,
Mhm.
and it just felt like a good match. And we had a good time. So, we ended up being roommates, and we had similar interests. And so it was a good fit.
Yeah. I think when we were talking before, he's like, that's kind of another person that kind of took you from, because when you look at a mentor, typically what a mentor does, even if it's a peer-to-peer mentor, is like, let's kind of open up the world and do something different than what the standard status quo is. And so it sounded like that was kind of one of the things that you mentioned before, that was a way for you to be like, yeah, that makes sense, and let's go do that together.
Right. Yeah. And it's changing now. What I'm looking for in a mentor is less like, how do I execute what I'm currently doing better? And now it's, I'm 50 years old, and I'm making this transition from like the doer, getting in there and making the pizza dough and testing the recipes, to more like, hey, I've done a lot of that and I've got that knowledge. Now I can leverage that knowledge to help, create wisdom and kind of make better decisions. And so now the mentors that I'm looking for, like, you guys know Joseph Cosper, like I went and had lunch with him. He's 3-4 years ahead of me. And so I'm like, hey man, West Pointer as well, and founded companies and had exits, and, guys run for Congress, the guy's crazy.
He did, yeah.
So, he had great advice for me, and so now I'm taking that and leveraging it. I met a chef that, the guy has market dare. He's been Japan Air's chef de cuisine. He's run fancy restaurants in Hawaii. He's done everything.
Mm-hmm.
He was Hop Dottie's head guy. And now he is the COO of Food Fleet. And they've got thousands and thousands of trucks all over the world, and he's growing that. But, Mark's seen every one of these things in this food space and knows, oh, what do you need? Oh, well, here, call this guy, right? And so can help me kind of think through this transition from one phase of life to the next phase of life that I'm kind of moving into.
Right. So to pull it on that thread, though, it sounds like, and this happens for all of us, it's life. We think it's going to go one way and then it just does this and does that. So for you, it opened up really big at the beginning because you joined the military, and that just kind of took you all over the world and saw all of opportunities. Is that a big part of kind of opening things up for you?
I think so. And I've always been I guess adaptive, I think of it. One thing that reminds me of is people that write books. So they tend to fall in the two tent poles, are either you're like a plotter. So I'm going to like write my whole outline. This is where my book's going. This is what's going to happen. And then I'm just going to fill in the story and edit it to make sure that works. And then there's pantsers, kind of seat of your pants, like George R. R. Martin.
All right, what happens next? What happens next?
Well, this character started doing this, and then, then that means this, you know what I mean? And they just kind of go. And so you like take a step, evaluate, see what you're doing, and take the next step. And that's kind of where I've been, like thought I was going to be a CTO track, stepped into it. Don't want to do that. This is what reality is, I think the military saying is, no plan survives the first shot. And so as soon as things start happening, you have to reevaluate,
improvise and adapt.
Was it hard for you to step away from your baby of like making the dough and being a part of the food production as you started to scale? Was it hard to step back and delegate and give it to others?
Not really. As often I wore a lot of hats. I was HR, I was chef, a little bit of ops, did payroll, was the tech guys, the last hat I just handed off. And I kind of had a bit of imposter syndrome where it's like, I didn't go to culinary school. I read books and I talked to other chefs and I got on YouTube and I found ideas and then I iterated on them, and to the point that I felt like we were doing a good job. And so I never felt like, yeah, I'm the expert. I need to own this. And so handing it off for me wasn't too tough, as long as I felt like, I'm handing it off to an upgrade, And so like the chef we have now, he's awesome. And this is what his career has been. And the food that he's putting out and developing is much more nuanced and complex and just a lot better than what I was coming up with. But I got us here, So right. I don't feel bad about it. Right. Same thing with the tech, like our tech stack of what we're doing in a restaurant, before COVID, 10% of our orders were to go, and they were all phone orders. Then COVID hit and we're like, we need online ordering. And so I stood up online ordering, and now about 33% of our orders are digital.
Wow.
So third party, like Favor, DoorDash stuff, and then online ordering. And I think that will keep growing. And so as we scale, we're kind of in a small to mid size business transition, and, we're getting geared up to grow. The tech stack gets more complex. We want to start warehousing data and analyzing it and having better metrics and dashboards to help the team, shortcut them to making good decisions in the field. And so it just keeps getting more complex. And the value that I was bringing, I felt like I'm bringing 75, 80% solution. And I'd love for the team to have 100% or 120% solution. And Jeremy Benton, who we've hired and has taken over for me, is a rock star. And it's great. He's crushing it. He's so much better than me. Every time he's like, yeah, I think we're going to go do this. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, I should have thought of that. But it's his career.
That's wonderful, though, that you bring that out, because there's obviously entrepreneurs that are going to be future entrepreneurs that are listening to this as well. And part of the issue as you go through life and as you become an entrepreneur is what you just said, replacing yourself, because you're always going to be replacing yourself with someone else. And you can either replace yourself with people that don't have the competency, and then where you're always feeling like you're the one managing, calling the shots, but it's pulling away your time, or you can hire people that are better than you. and being in awe of like, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I'm out of the way.
Oh yeah.
Versus that. So there's just a huge mentality.
You can like go focus on what other things you're good
right. And so it's almost like you're testing new grounds, and then you bring someone else with a lot more expertise once you've honed that in. And it sounds like that's what you've been able to achieve, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, we've got a great support team at Pinthouse, and they're like chomping at the bit. Like, we need more stores open so that we can fully utilize these guys. But yeah, to your point exactly, like much better than me. And, you know, as a business owner, I don't want to optimize my salary and protect my tech guy salary. I want to optimize my equity, right? So I own this business. And so if this person is better at executing and supporting the teams in this business, I need to get out of the way, right? And so I'll go do the strategic big brain stuff of, hey, I've been doing this for 12 years and I know a lot of people and I have these connections and I understand these markets. And that's more where my value is, not in, you know, changing the integrations that we have and things like that.
So where is it? So where, was it where did you learn that? Because a lot of people, this is standard entrepreneur advice, is know when to get out of your own way, right? That you're the one, like you say, you become obsessed with the pizza dough, and what you really need is a lifelong career chef to come in and do this because they're, it's what they're good at, right? So where did you learn that? Because that's quite rare, really, that people are good at just stepping aside.
I think our culture of the founders is, we have a mission statement, we have core values, and the mission is to make every guest experience great. And so if I ever feel like I'm in the way of that mission, or there's a better way I can serve that mission that also makes fiscal sense for the business, then that's probably what I should do. Having played a bunch of team sports,
that's what I was going to say.
I'm very team guy. Yeah, and so if I feel like my team is getting let down because I didn't get their DirecTV fixed or whatever, I'll be there at 2 a.m., whatever. Like, I'll be out of bed doing it just to make sure that they get the support they need. Because my hope is that my leadership, by being in the trenches, cleaning out the toilet, whatever needs to be done, is to show this is what you should be doing for your teams, right? Lead from the front, kind of get out there.
I have to say, I went into the PHP, the new branded one, Pinthouse on South Lamar the other night.
Okay.
And I went in 15 till close, and I felt badly, and I thought I was going to get attitude from people, and I did not at all. Everybody was so happy to have me come in and serve me. They made my pizza fresh from scratch. So leadership is working from the top down. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got great leaders in the stores. They're awesome. And they care a lot, almost too much. I worry about some of them.
Jumping back a bit though, what I did hear about some of that, which I thought was interesting, was you had this North Star. You had this mission, right? Or this value or an idea of where you wanted to go as an organization. And that was very important because it enabled you to make a choice then. Like, what is it really needs to be done here? And it's great customer experience. Okay,
exactly.
I need to get out of the way of that because now I'm the problem.
Yes.
Or I'm the not the problem, limiting factor. Right?
Well,
the team would be better. I'm like Roy Kent in Ted Lasso. Right. He's like, kind of aged out. It's time to go be a coach. Like, you're a great player, but it's time to go be a coach. And so I'm kind of freeing up salary cap, letting, bringing in a true star player, and I'm still going to benefit from it, but it's better for the team, right? And that's what matters. But the mission, we would have got there eventually, but I had a revelation where Tyler and I were doing Jimmy John's, and it's busy, it's hectic. I did all the opens, Tyler did all the closes 7 days a week. We just grinding, and we had a guest call, and they're like, "Hey, there's tomatoes on my sandwich. I told you no tomatoes." And so I'm like, no problem. Let me find your ticket. So I find the ticket, and it didn't say no tomatoes, right? And I'm telling you guys, well, the ticket doesn't say no tomatoes. And they're like, well, I told the guy no tomatoes. I'm like, all right, no problem. We'll remake it and send it out. And what I later reflected on is I'm solving on the phone. I'm trying to think through operationally, did you order it right? That doesn't matter.
Right.
Right.
That doesn't matter. Is the guest happy? If the guest is not happy, they're not coming back. Maybe they messed up. Maybe they didn't tell us no tomatoes. Maybe my guy missed it when they were taking the order. It doesn't matter. The guest isn't happy. Figure it out. That sandwich costs you 50 cents to make.
Right.
So make it, send it back out, blow them away with service, and create equity with the guest. Like I try and do with my team and with mentors. Create equity. You might need to spend it later. Right? So, going into Pinthouse, it was like, all right, well, here's the mission. Make guests happy. Have a great experience. Okay. And the team should know that in the name of that, they can do just about anything. They can give them a free t-shirt. They can give them a hat. They can comp their food. They can give them a free beer. Don't go ask for that, guys. But
you're like, maybe I shouldn't be saying this.
They need to have the latitude to find a way to say yes to the guests.
Yes.
So if they can't figure it out, they go get a manager. And if the manager can't figure it out, they should roll it up. Should go to the area manager, head of VP of operations, all the way to the president, right? We haven't gotten that far ever. You know, we've made...
That's quite an egregious mistake that the CEO or something has to come in and figure it out. Like that's...
Well, who knows what they're asking for, right?
True.
So, but your team needs to know the mission and then feel empowered to go do it and know that they're not going to get in trouble or busted.
Right.
Because they did this. You know, it's not about saving the $1 that beer cost because you gave them a free beer because their pizza was late and they had to wait for it to be made, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the core values kind of set, this is how we're going to treat each other. And this is how we're going to behave. And we're going to honor our agreements. We're going to be nice to each other, that kind of stuff. And then we have key business drivers, which is basically how do we define success? So in the name of this mission,
KPIs kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Is the store clean? How fast does the food come out? That kind of stuff.
It's really cool. Reminds me, I forget the name of the book, but it's about Ritz-Carlton, and he talked about the very similar things. Like he actually had a $2,000 limit that he'd give every employee. Yep. Like to make sure that the guest, like just to solve it. And the book counted at one time, and I don't know what year this was, but a guest forgot their laptop and they went to Hawaii. And one of the employees just used their ability and they just, not ship. She flew to Hawaii and dropped it off and flew right back. I mean, didn't stay for vacation. I think just like flew right back, but that was because this person needed it for some meeting and so on and so forth. But it's just this like blow your minds, exceptional customer service.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome.
Sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing with
different scale, but but as you get bigger, you can do that. And then other thing we'll do, I guess this is kind of mentorship, is we'll celebrate those stories.
Right.
And so every shift meeting, we find some story from the shift before it that aligns with one of those values. Or the mission.
And then it sort of stands as an example when people come to understand after tens of them.
And you want to be talked about.
Yeah, you feel validated.
Right. So, man, they keep talking about Leon. He keeps doing everything, not the good and the bad, but and so you want to be there. And then we have, we reward it, and so we do an employee beer, I think once a quarter, and you can only get it if you're an employee. It's got a special can and all that kind of cool stuff. But the guys that get to go brew that beer were the guys that got picked as top peers. Yeah.
Really, really cool.
I love that. It gives everybody agency to do their best.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump into our second part of the podcast, where we go and look at some of the questions that some Gen Zs post and give our opinions on how we would have tackled this or how we will tackle this. So the first one is Gabriel. And here's what he says.
So you faced your fear, but how did you reach the point where you said to yourself, I'm not going to let anxiety be my guide?
I don't think I've ever reached that point. I think that I take things as they come.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, sometimes it's still a challenge. Sometimes I just, I have a social battery. Sometimes I don't want to be out anymore, or I don't want to really talk to people. Or there could be, moments in time where, I'll text people and then I'll completely go radio silent for 2 or 3 weeks unless it's business related. And I think that's the only thing that I remain consistent with for communication wise is work. But, sometimes my friends may not see me for like, weeks at a time, and I'll just disappear off the map.
All right. Thoughts? I heard anxiety, and how does he kind of regulate his both anxiety and kind of social capital, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is first and foremost, it's not just for Gen Z. I mean, even at 50, there's still anxiety at times. I mean, would you say? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
And I know I do. When I start feeling it, lots of meditation. Just one of those things where I've got to just kind of, I don't necessarily go as far as blocking people out, but I do get up early and have my own time where I can just spend a half an hour in my own kind of quiet, and then kind of zen out so that I can tackle the day. What do you do?
One, I'd say it never goes away, right? You just maybe get better at managing it. And I think, there's habit creation. So that could be your meditations, or, I like to get off the devices and get outside, get some exercise. It kind of clears the head. But I think that it's probably trial and error, see what works for you, and habit creation to kind of keep you from your bad habits that maybe, help enable anxiety, or, I'm also need to recharge the social battery after, a while. I can turn it on when I need to, but then I am happy to be in the house by myself for a couple of weeks. But, I would think, trial and error, finding what works, see what other people are doing, try it out, try it on. If it fits, then stick with it. If not, trying to understand why and try something else.
Yeah. Leon, or you guys have any?
Yeah, it's always, it never goes away. There's always doubt. There's always mistakes. There's always hindsight, right? I think the trick is just not to I try to stay present, to worry less about what I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
You might sit there and obsess over how that dough could have been better, and but it didn't matter because you did what it needed to. It got you to that next piece, and just get just like, I guess that's it. Like, try and worry less about what could be or what was, and just how you're going to get to that next piece, because that's the only thing you can control. So you can't change the past, so you can think about it all you want. It's obviously good to learn lessons and reflect, but you can't change it. I have no control over any faraway future. The only thing I really have choice over is what I'm doing right now, and maybe what happens tomorrow. Maybe. Even then, it's, and so, and it's really easy, I think, to sort of get stuck in what ifs and everything else. And like you say, I like to run, meditation, and all, whatever it is that you do that helps, but just doing your best to cope with whatever feelings, feel your feelings, do your best with coping, and just try to keep your eye on whatever that North Star is, if it's tomorrow or if it's making customer experiences great or whatever it is. That's kind of my advice. It's not good advice per se, or there's no magic answer. Everyone's different. And the hard part, the easy part about living is that it does work out. That's the easy part. Or everything always works out. The hard part, though, is living through that journey. Looking back on my life for the things that went wrong, it seems fine now. At the time, things were really crushing, when things went wrong or careers pivoted or whatever it was. So, I don't know. And so you just get this, we all have to go and kind of learn those lessons and find those mentors that are going to help us navigate those spaces. But there aren't easy answers. And I think that's my honest answer.
Did you want to respond to him?
No, I just want to make fun of him saying his honest answers. I didn't want your dishonest answer.
Dad joke.
Dad joke.
I would say as a recovering people pleaser, I have learned to be able to know when I can't participate in something. I used to say if we had plans I couldn't cancel, I would kill myself and push myself to go do something even if I wasn't physically able to or I was exhausted. But then I'd show up and not be present or be fun to be around. But I'm here,
Right.
So I now, for example, last night I was up working till 3 a.m. I had really cool plans this morning to work out with a friend at 7 a.m. And I was like, it's just not going to happen. I need my sleep. I have a big podcast today. Anyway.
Besides this one.
No, I was talking about this one. So yeah, I would encourage people to know when to advocate for themselves and not always have to please somebody else. Don't be known for canceling every time, but know your limits and honor that.
I'm glad you bring that up because, and it's something that I think we're going to talk at our next episode, that's coming up because it's going to be on the science of the psyche. And back to the point that you made that I want to pull on the thread a little bit is you make that communication to the individual, say, I'm not going to be able to do so. Some people, and not saying that Gabriel or anybody else is doing this, but some people just kind of go cold, like just you don't hear from them, and there's no communication whatsoever. Not even like I want this, I need this time or anything like that. And this is kind of a culture that we see it a lot in culture today, just because of the digital apparatuses that we have, and it's easy to block somebody and not have the communication. And so, but I find that with what you said earlier about building community and building that equity around people, you still want to have that. I mean, people understand. I understand, Ned, if you're going to say, hey, I want to be gone for like 3 weeks, I'm taking some time, some me time. But if I try to get a hold of you and you're just like ignoring me for 3 weeks, then I'm in my own head now, causing my own anxiety, thinking, well, why isn't Ned talking to me? And
right.
So it can cause other issues if there's not just that
open. You damage that relationship.
Yeah. So as long as you're aware that there's other people have the same kind of, and it is a community, everybody's got the same kind of anxiety issues. And so as long as you can take care of yourself while still making sure that people to communicate with, I think that it then makes a much better end result, outcome at the end. So anyway, I just was kind of hearing you say one thing as you say another. I'm like, glad that we brought that out with this communication here. All right, next one.
The transition between high school and college is it's a massive difference.
Yeah.
It's hard for my brain sometimes to wrap around how big of a change it will be.
So there are a few times in life when it is going to be this huge jump. And he's pointing to one. You had several. You went from that to college, and also you went into the military. So what was that for you? Was there anxiety doing that, or is during that shift, or were you just like Ned strikes me as the kind of person who's like, I'm just going to take it as I go.
No, I was stressed out. Yeah, West Point's tough. I
have heard the military has low standards. I meant that sarcastically. I wasn't actually trying to took that.
No, it's
West Point's no joke. I mean,
they really push you.
Yeah.
I carried at least 18, sometimes 22 credits every semester, playing basketball, doing your military stuff. You don't get a full summer break. You don't get a full winter break. You're doing exercises and different things in between those. And so you're so packed with time time sucks that you don't have a lot of time to worry about it. It's just like you get good at shortcutting. Maybe that's where I learned, I can figure this out, but I can just ask this guy, what I mean?
Right.
Because that'll save me some time because I got these other things I got to go do.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
But in the Army, you have some choices, but you don't have a ton of choices. I think a lot of possibly this anxiety or this realization going from high school to college is like you lose a lot of the guardrails, and you got to create your own sandbox, and you got to get yourself up, and you got to get yourself to school, and you got to make sure your grades are in and done, and the project's on time, and you're probably still figuring out relationships with your peers and not being a deadbeat on the project and everything else, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot.
And it sounds like, but for you, you went from one system to another system that also had guardrails. In other words, you had all these to-dos that had to happen. So it wasn't like you had all this agency, now all of a sudden all that pressure until maybe after you left. Is that a true statement?
Yeah. I mean, you still have to do it. It's just much clearer about what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by and how it needs to be done. So maybe it's a bit more guided.
Yeah.
Instead of free form.
Mm-hmm.
You're not missing class.
Right.
You know,
No.
If you're missing class, you're going to hear
10
about
mile run, right?
it. Yeah. I wish. That'd be easy. But and so I think for them, it's more just self accountability. You know, it's a big change, and I think it could be. You know, I have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'm trying to layer that into them now. It's not going that great, but
I was
trying.
going to ask, you know, being a dad myself, and how is that for you, having your two young ones and kind of taking everything you've learned and now showing them?
You know, the problem is they're in these teen ages where they, I can't come at them directly. There's no directives anymore. It's suggestions, it's Instagram posts, it's, hey, did you see what this other guy did? Because they don't want to hear it from me anymore. Especially my son, who's the 12-year-old that likes to play basketball. He doesn't want to hear anything about basketball from me because I've hit my lifetime limit, I think, on feedback. But and so it's more wildflowers and less bonsai trees. You know, we're not shaping them anymore. I am at the point where I'm just trying to enable them and then layer in more and more responsibility and decision making so that we give them the space to fail and hopefully learn those lessons now instead of in college. You know, same thing like social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great. It takes a lot of time. It distorts their vision of themselves and their peers.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't start looking at it now and thinking through those things now, when I'm not there, when they're in college,
Right.
they're going to be a mess,
Mm-hmm.
right? They already are a mess. So, yeah.
Parenting 101. What you look forward to, Leon, with
Yeah, I've heard those stories.
Well, I just want to say there's a Bible verse that talks about like raise your kids in the way of the Lord and they won't depart from it, or they'll come back to it. I think that's the truth for any type of parenting. Raise your kids with good integrity, with doing what they say they're going to do, all that stuff. They might depart from it for a little bit, but they will come back because you're establishing the foundation of being a good human.
I agree with that. I see mine's a little bit further along. She's 21, and I see that rounding coming back around. So I saw that there was a lot of and we all go through it. We're kind of agency building during your teens. And it is frustrating because you're like, but don't do it that way. Because as parents and as mentors, we're just trying to give shortcuts. That's all we're trying to do.
Right.
It's like, if you do it this way, trust me, it's going to go so much easier for you. But agency doesn't allow you to do that. It's like, I want to do it my way. All right, go do it your way. At some point, it's this: put your hands in the air and let them figure it out. But I see now she's, after 20, 21, there's a lot more asking. And what would you do here? Or how do we do this? Or what do you think about this? It's a lot more of those kind of questions. So, which makes there's a lot less frustration because now there's more alignment. So back to
and willingness to listen.
Exactly. Back to what you said.
So I would tell the person that submitted the video that it's going to be all right. That, you'll figure it out. And whatever you think you want to be in college right now, computer scientists, maybe you're making pizza and beer for a living, so, you never know. It's a journey. And especially I think not to get into this rabbit hole, but as our technologies come along, the pace of change and the change in how careers are done and what is done is just going to escalate. So be okay with change. You'll be all right.
Love it. All right, let's knock this last one out. And it looks like it's going to be about social media.
Or does social media affect how you identify?
How I identify, no, but it does worry me because social media is starting at a much younger age. Like I started using social media when I got to like high school. A lot of people are using social media like in middle school. Like my little sister's 4 years old watching TikTok. You know what I mean? Like that's the sad reality of it nowadays, in my opinion.
Seemed like we touched on social media a lot. It's funny. Someone sent me a Zuckerberg interview that he did on, I forget which podcast it was. And wasn't that great? And I thought a lot of the business building that he talked about was amazing for entrepreneurs. But then he gets to the point of like social media, and his view on social media is just not what we've experienced. He's like, social media is so good because it does all these things. I'm like, not sure what world you're living in, but it's not the world we're living in.
His shares. He's living in his shares world.
So, but yeah, no, I think we've, you just touched on it. We've touched on this before. And yeah, this is one of those things where, I think agency and grounding make a lot of sense, where you're able to say, you're not going to fight social media. It's going to be there. It's going to be present. But if you've got, like what you're talking about, some of these wisdom nuggets along the way, so that they can see for themselves. I know that I've mentioned this before, but even though my daughter still is on social media significantly, she is aware of that she needs to put it away, and she'll put it away, and she'll have her quiet time, her meditation time, that kind of stuff, because she does at least understand the impact that it's having on her. So that is just one of those things that we have to deal with. Thanks, Mark.
Well, I'm trying to get my kids to at least question. So you can enjoy it, whatever, but where's the source? Why are they telling you this? What's their goal? And just, question it. And you might agree with it eventually, but
that's a great way to look at it.
It's just, it's funny for this interview, this podcast. It's like, hey, send us your social media handles and we'll promote them. And I'm like, what? Here's Pinthouse, I guess. I'm not on social media, or not that much, right? And so I might not be the best person to advise on it.
I think
I know
that is one thing that's very important to remember about social media. You saying about sources, right? It's like there's on almost every form of social media is now monetized, which means the only reason you're seeing something is because either someone's paid to put it in front of you for some reason, right? That means they want you to see it. So it's an ad, or it's designed to change your opinion on something, or some political nonsense, or whatever it is. Or because it's monetized in some other way, it's Mr. Beast or whatever, or some YouTube star, and they're getting, money for creating that content. And so either way, everything you see on TikTok or YouTube, what is making someone money. And always remember, you are the consumer of that, or someone's getting something. There's no reason you don't.
You are the product.
To some extent, yeah, right? And either someone wants to get you to buy something, and they want you to change your mind, or they want you to change your behavior, or they want you just to watch the videos because they get kickbacks from whatever the platform is.
Yeah.
And it's always important to keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with it. So, it's the same with Netflix. They want me to sit there and watch that and watch ads because that's how they make money. And that's okay. And they put, hopefully good content in that I want to watch, but just know that's, the value exchange always with Netflix, it's more obvious. I want to watch this, or I have to watch the ads to see this. But in a lot of, especially now with a lot of TikTok marketing, they're getting so much smarter about the way products get put forward. But that model, it hasn't changed.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to think about it. I think that, and maybe a better way to say what I was saying earlier is like, how do we get to truth? Just understand, don't accept things on face value, kind of question them a little bit.
Yeah, especially, 30-second clips, because it's always clipped of a bigger story. What was the bigger narrative? And it's almost always something completely different. And it gets your mind thinking one way. You're like, I saw this, and it's like, I have then you spread what you've seen, and all of a sudden was that truth? Likely not.
Well, then, sorry, but And then AI, image generation,
Right.
video generation, voice simulation.
Here we go.
Thanks.
We don't have to go down that, but here's a business idea. Blockchain for content. So I can
So you can verify
chase
it's real.
the provenance of it and where it came from.
Yeah.
I like that. I was just going to say, be mindful of how you feel after being on social media. I have nieces and nephews, and their behavior always changes after they've had at least even 10 minutes on YouTube watching it. They're different. They're not as well behaved. And the same thing happens for me, I think, after spending a lot of time being shown content that makes me feel bad about myself or anxious, or why aren't I doing that? Getting up at 4 a.m. and doing all the other things. So just be mindful of how you feel afterwards so you can regulate it.
I've started to feel, and part of why I've pulled away significantly, is because I've started to feel a stress headache every time. Like I can watch it for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden I start feeling the stress headache. I'm like, ooh, not good. Let me switch to something else.
Yeah.
So being mindful.
Reason they call it doom scrolling.
Yeah.
But and I forgot, I read or heard a podcast with somebody, and I forget the guy, so sorry. But he has this habit where every year he'll take a week and have a retreat, which is a luxury. But validate your desires. Why do I want this thing? Am I getting out of it what I think I want from it? So look back at your social media time.
Right.
And then see how you feel before and after it, and then validate, is this really doing what I want to be doing?
What's the value here?
Yeah. What am I getting out of this?
I like that. Validate your desires.
I like that. Alrighty. Well, I think that's it for today. We're at time. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Thank
It's
you,
fun.
Ned.
Another episode wrapped.
On to Pinthouse.
On to Pinthouse.
And that's a wrap on episode 9. Huge thanks to Ned Lavelle for joining us and sharing his inspiring journey from basketball courts to the world of pizza and craft beer. If you took anything away from today, let it be Ned's approach to mentorship, staying adaptable, and continuously finding ways to create great experiences. Don't forget to head over to Pinthouse Pizza if you're in Austin and taste some of that electric jellyfish IPA for yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. If you would like to participate as a Gen Z guest or mentor, visit our site at foundingup.com or check out the show notes. And as always, keep pushing forward, stay curious, and don't be afraid to explore the uncharted.